Hello, my name is Aiden Ziegler. I am a third year psychology student, and today we will be discussing dissociative identity disorder, otherwise referred to as DID. So, what is DID? The Mayo Clinic defines DID as a mental health condition where you have two or more separate personalities that control your behaviors at different times. These different personalities are referred to as alters. They are defined as different identities sharing one brain. These alters are completely separate from the host, and they can be different ages, races, have different memories, possess different behaviors, have completely different personalities, speak different languages, have different interests, and are, for all intents and purposes, a different person. Switching alters is when someone with dissociative identity disorder who is, for example, at the driver's seat of their own mind, takes a step back, lets go of the wheel, and someone else, an alter, takes control of that wheel. Two people can be in charge at once, kind of sharing the brain, or they can completely shut out one alter and front entirely. Switching alters can create gaps in memories, confusion, fear, put the person into dangerous situations, and it makes it very hard for people suffering from DID to complete daily tasks like taking care of themselves, having a job, driving, eating, basically everything. How is DID formed? DID is formed from repeated childhood trauma. DID is typically formed before the age of 7 years old, but there are cases where it happens later. A nonprofit organization called Destructing Stigma defines the causes of DID are associated with long-term exposure to trauma, often chronic traumatic experiences during early childhood. Examples of these causes can be sexual trauma, physical abuse, neglect, witnessing or living in a war zone, medical trauma like terrible accidents, medical malpractice, or witnessing abuse like a domestic violence situation or an outside abusive situation that the child is a witness of. How does dissociative identity disorder help us understand the brain as a whole? Dissociative identity disorder has a lot of different aspects to it that can help us understand how the brain works, how we store memory, and how we deal with trauma. One of the ways that DID helps us understand the brain is through a process that is very prevalent in people with dissociative identity disorder, referred to as dissociation. Dissociation is when someone can completely remove themselves and their person from a situation. It can be a response to trauma, like childhood trauma, or from a single instance, like a car accident. It is a complete disconnection from one's own self or environment. Like they just shut off, effectively. Another way that DID can help us understand the brain is through depersonalization. The organization Deconstructing Stigma defines this as prolonged detachment from oneself or sense of body, a sensation of being apart from oneself, perhaps viewing what is happening from a distance. So basically, this is when you are far away from your own body and you are basically watching your life as if you are a video game character or a commentator, but you don't feel that it is you completing those actions. Fragmentation is feeling that one's own feelings, thoughts, and body does not belong to them. People with DID also experience this. How does DID help us understand memory? One thing that people with DID suffer from is inter-identity amnesia. and it is the inability to retrieve memories associated with other identities. Like I discussed earlier, this can be, one person witnesses a traumatic event while they're in the driver's seat of the brain, and they shield this memory from everybody else who is in their head because they don't think that they can handle it. There are early cases of dissociative identity disorder that led to the discovery of this disorder. One is the case of the German woman. A German woman would regularly completely split off from her own personality and become a different person. This person was French, did not have any memories of the host, which was this German woman. She spoke fluent French, she didn't understand what was going on around her, and she was very terrified by the entire experience. When this French person, Alter, would leave the brain and put the host back in charge, the host had no memory of this French person or anything that happened while they were not present in their own brain. The daily life of someone with DID. The daily life of someone with DID can be very difficult because you could be constantly switching through alters and not knowing 1 hour from the next because of this. They struggle with driving, going places alone, maintaining jobs, maintaining relationships, mental health in general, isolation, and struggling to take care of themselves. More than 70% of people with DID have attempted suicide, according to the Mayo Clinic. People with DID suffer a lot because of this trauma and because of this disorder that resulted from this trauma. They can experience anxiety, delusions, suicidal thoughts, self-harm, PTSD, substance abuse, and eating disorders resulting from this trauma and this diagnosis. Final thoughts. Dissociative identity disorder is a complex disorder that we as a society need to understand more about. DID is often stigmatized in movies and media, which can cause the lives of people with dissociative identity disorder to be much harder. Mental illness does not make someone violent, it does not make them crazy, it does not make them a bad person. The more we learn about different mental illnesses, the better we can help people who struggle with them. Thank you for your time.